So basically, when I've been with the Cowboys for 18 years, and obviously social media hasn't been around for 18 years. So I moved over probably about 10 years ago when social media just kind of started being a thing with brands and teams, and created the what now is the Dallas Cowboys social media. Me and my team oversee the Cowboys, the cheerleaders, the stadium, the star, all the platforms that those properties are on. And we do everything from coming up with the strategy to working with partnerships to monetize it, working with our partnership team. We work with the players, we work with PR, we work with football ops. So we really touch every single department within the organization. And the way that it really evolved over the years, the biggest change is when we first started, none of the guys were on social media. None of the players were on social media. And then you started seeing the more that social media evolved, the guys now that are coming into the league, they've grown up on social media. Social media was out 10 years ago. Well, these guys were, some of them were 12 years old. So they've kind of grown with these platforms. And at first it was just Facebook really and Twitter were the really two only platforms there were. And then, Instagram came along, and then Snapchat came along, and now TikTok's come along. And I went to a seminar one time, and a guy put it really, probably the best way that I've ever heard it put is, these platforms are always going to change, and they're always the demographics going to shift, and there's always going to be new platforms, and there's going to be platforms that go away. And he likened it to the club. When people start going to the club, you go to the club, but when your parents and your parents' friends start showing up at the club, you go find a new club, right? And that's kind of what social platforms are now. Your parents weren't on Facebook, and then when they started getting on Facebook, people kind of migrated to Twitter, and then when they started getting on Twitter, everybody migrated to Instagram, and now your parents are on Instagram, and everybody migrated to Snapchat, and then now they're migrating to TikTok, and it's just an ever evolving thing. And I think the big thing is just understanding that social media as an athlete can be one of the most powerful things that you can do, is be active on social media, because it can build your brand. And you start building your brand when basically you sign up for that first account. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like, a lot of people don't, some people know they're going to make it to the pros, or they're going to make it to college, and they're going to have a career out of this. Some people don't. Some people grow into the career, but the big thing is you can't take anything back. And it can make you, and it can break you. So I think the biggest thing for up and coming athletes are to really think about everything you put out there. Don't do not post on social media, no matter how great of an idea it sounds like when you've been drinking or you've been partying. I know that sound in that moment, it's fun, and you want to show your friends what you're doing and all that, but that's probably one of the most detrimental things you can do, because I know from experience, you put things out on social that you normally wouldn't, when you've been drinking and partying, and you can't take this stuff back, because someone somewhere is going to screenshot something or screen record a video. And we've experienced that with the cheerleaders, where when things go out, you can't take, even with players, it goes out, someone's got it somewhere. They might save it for a while and use it against you later on, but someone's going to see it, someone's going to find it. And I think the big thing is, if you have to kind of pause and ask yourself if this is a good idea, it's probably not a good idea. I mean, there's no tweet or no post that's worth jeopardizing your career, or if not your career, thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. One social media post can affect you in that way, and sometimes honestly can put you out of a job, can get you out of the league or things, depending on what that is. So I think the big thing is just understanding the power of social media, that it can be a huge asset. In football, I think the last statistic I read, the average NFL player's career is 2.3 years. and a long career is 5 to 8 years in the NFL. And with social media, you have the power to build your brand if you do it the right way and leverage it the right way, and build a brand strong enough on social media that you can ride that following and that fandom that has started following you into another career. And I've seen a lot of guys with our team that were just okay players. They weren't superstars, but they interacted with us on social media, and we kind of were able to leverage our platforms to grow their following. And they left and they went on to use that following to push them into other careers and open up gyms, some of them have opened up training facilities, and they've used that following to help them earn a career and, earn a living and make a career out of that. So I think just knowing that it's a good thing and a bad thing, you just have to do it the right way and always be conscious of what you're putting out.
What how do you teach, whether you're working with the Cowboys cheerleaders or the players themselves, and especially put yourself in somebody's shoes when they're younger, to handling that negative criticism or feedback that comes from, or negative posts? What's your strategy for that?
Yeah, the keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's really tricky because we even get that. I host a couple of different things on our website and our social media. I host a podcast with a couple of our former players. And we even get that at the level that we're at. We're by no means the same level as the cheerleaders or the players. We don't get near as much feedback as they do. Most of it's positive for us because if people listen to our show, they like what we're saying usually, but we still get a little bit of that. And it's hard when people attack you or people come at you. 9 times out of 10, if you go back at them, or if you just acknowledge them, you don't even have to really go at them. Just acknowledge them and say, hey, I respect your opinion, but I disagree with you. Or if you handle it, if you just, acknowledge what they're saying, 9 times out of 10, those people will back down and they're like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. I meant by blah, 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 they back down. But you do have some people that kind of come at you. And I would say, if you want to respond, I ignore it. If it's something negative and I just don't have the energy and the time to put into that. But some people aren't built that way. Some people have to, want to stick up for what they believe in and want to say things. And I would just say, go at that the same way you need to go at other things. Just know that whatever you say, it's going to be out there. Someone can screenshot it. Someone's probably going to screenshot it, or someone's going to, bring it up at some point later on. So don't act on emotion. If you really want to respond to something, it's, sit on it, maybe type it up, save it in your notes, sit on it for an hour or so, and then go back to it, or maybe even the next day. And if you feel really strongly about it, put it out there. But just know people are going to see it. And to me, 99.9% of the time, it's just not worth going back at people. I just advise people, hey, if you can ignore it, ignore it, because it's just not worth the damage that it can do for you. And the people that are attacking you, most of the time, they're really nobodies, and they're just trying to troll people and get a reaction anyway. So I would just say, don't buy into that. Don't feed into it. But I think engagement and interacting with fans on social media, especially when you're in the sports world, that can build your brand. And that's the fastest way to build it, is to interact with fans like that. And if you have the right kind of people following you, you handle it the right way, usually the people that follow you will kind of police themselves and kind of take up for you in those situations, is kind of what we found out. So yeah, I think it's all the above. I think the big thing is to diversify. I would say, everybody's got their favorite platforms. My favorite platforms right now are probably Instagram, and I refuse to do anything on TikTok, and I refuse to get on TikTok. And then once I finally did, like, I'm addicted to it. So, I don't post a lot on TikTok. I don't post anything actually on TikTok, but that's probably my favorite platform to go consume content. But I would say diversify your brand as much as possible, because there's a different demographic on every platform. There's the older demographic is on Facebook. the more techie newsy type demographic, middle-aged graphic is on Twitter. Instagram's more your, your 20s to 30s ish. TikTok is your, teenagers to your, your 20s. And I would say just put content out on each platform, but definitely giving behind the scenes look at things, letting your personality kind of shine through, and just being yourself. You can find your own niche by just really being who you are. People just want to interact with you, and interact. Don't just post stuff and not talk to fans. Like, you don't have to talk to all of them, but I would say spend a little bit of time each week interacting with fans and talking to them and retweeting them and quote tweeting them, and then commenting on, liking comments on your Instagram page, interacting with people on TikTok. I think that's the fastest way to really grow a following, is just the access, letting them see who you are as a person, and then the interaction following up. That interaction is super, super important.
Yeah. I would imagine that you guys see that within the Dallas Cowboys, and you probably enjoy when social media is done right. I would imagine that the Dallas Cowboys like it when their players are active but not over consumed by social media.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we've had guys over the years that have interacted, engaged with us, that have become our social media darlings, I guess, that would volunteer. Players are bothered. Some players are bothered by us asking them to do stuff. Some guys like enjoy it and really get into it. And there's a couple of guys over the past couple of years that are no longer on the team, Antoine Woods and Joe Looney, and they were a couple of not really well-known guys. One was offensive lineman, one was a defensive lineman. But we would, they were our go-to guys anytime we would need to do something. And they were both, Joe Looney was hilarious. Well, normally a backup offensive lineman, no one would even know what his name was, but Joe Looney built a brand kind of through us, because he would do stuff for us on social. And not only did that help him out while he was here and kind of, notoriety and kind of get his name out there, you don't really realize it, but there's other teams look at other teams' social media. Like, we have scouts all the time telling us that they go look at other teams' websites and social media to try to gain some information about players, or what we're doing in practice. So they see this stuff. And if they see a guy that's a likable personality, and there's another guy they're thinking about bringing in, and they've seen this guy, if they feel like they know this guy a little better, even though it's through social media, and he looks like a good locker room guy and a guy that gets along with people, that's going to break the tie every time. They're going to bring that guy in. And you don't really think about things like that, like other teams scouting people's digital accounts and social accounts, but it's a real thing. And then after your career, if Joe Looney retires from football and he stays in Frisco or Dallas, that's going to be a guy we're going to reach out to come do stuff for DallasCowboys.com and be on, our pregame show and our postgame show, just because he already built that rapport with us by, building that relationship with us through social media. He's setting himself up to not only do work for us, but then that could turn into him being on ESPN or the NFL network or the SEC network. So it sets you up for your career after, if you do it the right way and you look at it as kind of, a piece to the puzzle of, social's not a burden to go do these things. It's actually helping me build my brand and set me up for life after sports.
Right. Okay. So we talked about the positive effect of social media. Have you seen players, coaches, management ruin their careers by the way they view social media?
Yes, there was a guy that played for us, and I won't say his name.
Yeah, don't use the name.
But he was very active on social media, and he was funny. He was a funny guy, but he was kind of a fringe player. He was always kind of teetering on practice squad, being active on game day, back and forth. And he would put everything on social media. Like, if he was out partying in the bar, he was putting that up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he would be late to a meeting the next morning. Well, people internally would see his posts on social media and they knew why he was late, because he's out partying, right? And then, I think he was quickly becoming a fan favorite because of social media, but he didn't know where to draw the line between, okay, this is something that I should think about and that could get me in trouble, or something that's, and I think it really impacted his time here. And I think he's playing up in the Canadian Football League now. And I think he would probably still be in the league if he wasn't putting the wrong messages out on. He never did anything that was, controversial or anything, never had any, never wound up in the news for any of this stuff, but it was just the little things that he didn't really think through. Like, okay, I'm out partying at 2 o'clock in the morning. Should I be putting this up when I know I have a game in 2 days, or, meetings in the morning, or things like that? So I've seen that. And then I've seen some other people that, have been very outspoken on social media, and kind of had some go at some fans and things like that. And I think that stuff matters when coaches are trying to figure out, if there's a tie between two guys and you have one guy that's going at people on social media, and he's very vocal, and he's, controversial, and he's putting his opinions out there. And you got one guy that's not, if you don't align with the coaching staff, or ownership or management, this guy's probably going away and this guy's probably staying. So, I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think, what I've seen too in a lot of people and how they handle social media now, it's not just off the cuff, throw out a tweet. It's really think about the message, how it's crafted, how it's delivered, the words that you're using. And before you hit send, you read it again, and make sure that it's gone through your own internal filter, and checks off all the boxes that you talked about, because you want that post to be a positive, impactful thing that you're putting out in the world, rather than something that you're hoping that nobody saw. So
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah. All right. Well, anything else that you want to add, that you would leave people with, or questions that you've ever faced that you want to share? Otherwise, it's pretty awesome what you shared. That was perfect.
Yeah, no, I would say the big takeaway is, don't look at social media as an evil. And even if you're not into social media, I would really, strongly consider setting up a presence on social media. And another part of it is, you want to take your name, right? You want to make sure you have a presence. That way someone else doesn't get your name or get your handles or whatever before you do. And then later on you decide to do it, and then you can't get your name or whatever, whatever handles you want to use. So I would say I would camp on those handles or titles or whatever you want to do on certain platforms. And then I would really strongly consider getting on them, even if you're not a big social media person, because it literally can be one of the most positive things for a career, in sports. And then after sports, you just have to do it the right way. And like you said, type it. It's the same thing with emails, type it, sit on it, read it again, maybe sit on it again. And then before you push send. And, it's like, dressing to go to work. If you have to look in the mirror and say, should I wear this to work? You probably shouldn't wear it. Right. So kind of the same thing. Should I send this out? Probably not, if you're asking that question, because in my opinion, no social post is worth, a possible career or something like that. So just, be smart about it, use it. It's a very strong and positive thing if it's used in the right way. So we played in London, I think it was about 8 years ago now, and we had to come up with a hashtag. Everybody that played in London, they had one game a year. Now I think they have a couple of games a year. Everybody was taking turns. So we went over and played the Jaguars, and we had to come up with a hashtag. So we came up with a hashtag Cowboys UK, right? Hashtag Cowboys UK. And every other team that had played over there, like the Dolphins, they all basically use the same thing. Dolphins UK, Eagles UK. The Jaguars actually had a Twitter handle, because their owner he owns a soccer team over there. So they would play over there every year. Jaguars UK. So we use Cowboys UK. We drew it out on a whiteboard. We all looked at it. We approved it internally. We sent it to the league. The league approves it. We're at the facility getting on the buses to go take this 9-hour flight to London. And Jason Witten's coming out, hashtag Cowboys UK. Des Bryant's coming out to get on the bus, hashtag Cowboys UK. And we get on the plane, 8 or 9 hour flight, and we land, and I turn my phone on and it's like blown up, right? And all these messages, and I'm like, oh my God, what's happened? Has something happened to my family? Like, what's going on? And if you look at it and you spell out Cowboys UK, it says Cowboys suck, right? Well, some guy that had an Eagles blog took it and put it out, and it was on the front page of USA Today. It was on the homepage of Yahoo when Yahoo was like one of the biggest search engines there was. It was on Deadspin. It was everywhere. And it was just like Cowboys, hashtag fail. And it was, front page headlines. And everybody's texting me, or like, dude, did you lose your job? Was this you? What was going on? And internally, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was like, what happened? And we were like, this is how we got there. This is what we're doing to correct it. We're just going to move on from the hashtag and start using the game day hashtag. And it was like, okay, just as long as we have a plan, no big deal. Well, this thing rode the news cycle for a good 24 hours or maybe even more than that. And it was like, and if you read it out, it says Cowboy suck. It doesn't even say Cowboys suck, but that's kind of in the semantics. So that was one of my biggest fails, was that. Probably the most viral thing we've done is it wasn't really a tweet or a post. It was an idea that we had that was the Breakfast Club. You can go YouTube it. It's where we had all of it was Dak's rookie year. So we had Dak and Zeke and Dez and a whole bunch of guys that we just threw this video together real quick. And it's still our most viewed video of all time. But the probably the most fun thing we ever did is we brought Sting, the wrestler. I don't know if you remember him, that had the white and black face paint. He came in and did like a Sports Center type commercial with us. Then the WWE helped us promote that. He's a big Cowboys fan, actually lives right outside of Dallas, and came in and did that. So we've done some really fun things. And I can't say just one thing that blew up, but I can definitely say that was probably the worst tweet that we ever put out, was a whole series of those.